Good afternoon, historians. The epitome of a show trial. The Scopes monkey trial was the first of its kind, nationally broadcast via radio a mere 5 years after the first broadcast of any kind. Two high-profile attorneys and a defendant persuaded by the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, to stand trial. Why would the ACLU persuade someone to stand trial? Good question. I'm glad you asked. It was a staged trial, of course. And why would they stage a trial? Why would anyone stage a trial? That's another good question. According to Dr. David Minton, author of the Scopes monkey trial 80 years later, the ACLU became alarmed over anti-evolution bills that were being introduced in the legislatures of 20 states in the early 1920s. It served as publicization of the Fundamentalist Modernist controversy that was wreaking havoc with Protestantism across the country. The trial pitted the former Secretary of State and three-time Democratic presidential nominee, William Jennings Bryan, representing fundamentalism, and on the other side, he was against arguably the top defense attorney in the country, Clarence Darrow, representing modernism and the ACLU. Tennessee, the small town of Dayton to be precise, was the chosen location for this sham trial to take place. John T. Scopes was the teacher who volunteered to be arrested as well as to stand trial for willfully violating the Butler Act, a Tennessee law restricting the teaching of human evolution in state-funded schools. Now, I say teacher because Scopes was the school's football coach and was only briefly filling in as a science teacher. When approached by the ACLU, Scopes said, and I quote, "If you can prove that I've taught evolution and that I can qualify as a defendant, then I'll be willing to stand trial." He even went so far as to persuade his students to testify that he did indeed teach human evolution in the classroom. The point of the trial was for Scopes to be convicted of violating the Butler Act. With Scopes losing, the ACLU won. This trial became the rallying cry for modernists in the U.S. and the fixed point that represents the sharp decline in American fundamentalist moral principles. What I found the most interesting was how eerily similar the media presentation of the trial was to how media coverage of similar events are today. In the New York Times article previewing the trial, phrases such as the Bible versus the Constitution, or on one side are people owning a simple but unbending faith, on the other side is a group which insists that data science has wrung from the laboratory the earth and the stars shall not be suppressed. False comparisons such as these imply that the Bible and the Constitution are somehow antithetical, or that Christians are uneducated buffoons, while those who believe in evolution are educated and in tune with nature for some reason. In the other article I consulted, from the Washington Times, printed the day before the conclusion of the trial, presents the findings of scientists who concluded that the theory of evolution upholds the principles found within the Bible. Again, this is another history repeats itself kind of thing. The article opened with the author, William Hutchinson, oozing out a bit of sensational dribble and apostasy. In one of the most amazing legal documents, he says, of history, one of the most amazing legal documents of history, 8 apostles from America's temples of knowledge bared the heart of science here today in a tremendous effort to prove evolution and reconcile it with divine creation. The central crux of the trial, however, wasn't to pit evolution against the Bible, as the author seems to imply in the first half of his introduction, but to show how the Bible supports evolution, as later on in his statement, Mr. Hutchinson tries to state in the second half. This dichotomy of thought has echoed throughout the past century, if not before then, with the media and a certain political persuasion not being able to parse through contradictory stances, which leave them with naught but incoherent thoughts. Thank you for your time, and Godspeed.